Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let me ask you something before we begin. When was the last time you truly chose yourself? Not the version of you that tries to please everyone, not the version that stays quiet to avoid conflict, not the version that keeps giving even when there is nothing left inside. I mean the real you. The tired you. The hurt you. The hopeful you. The you that still believes life can feel lighter someday. This story is not about becoming selfish. It's not about pushing people away or living without love. It's about learning one simple truth that most of us discover too late in life: if you don't love yourself more than anyone else, you will spend your entire life begging for love in places that were never meant to give it. I want to tell you a story. Not a perfect story. Not a dramatic movie-style story. But a quiet, honest one. A story that feels like real life. Because maybe somewhere inside this story, you'll see yourself. There was a time when I believed love meant sacrifice. I believed loving others meant putting myself last. I believed that if I gave enough, if I understood enough, if I stayed patient enough, people would eventually choose me the way I chose them. So I kept giving. I gave my time, my energy, my emotions, my peace. I ignored my exhaustion. I ignored the voice inside me that whispered, "This hurts." I told myself it was normal to feel empty sometimes. I told myself strong people don't complain. I told myself love requires pain. And slowly, without realizing it, I started disappearing from my own life. I was always available. Always replying fast. Always adjusting my schedule. Always understanding when someone didn't show up for me. I became the person who listened to everyone's problems but never spoke about their own. The person who smiled even when they were breaking inside. The person who said, "I'm fine," so often that it became a habit. And the scariest part? People loved that version of me. They loved the version that never said no. The version that never asked for too much. The version that made their lives easier. But no one loved the version of me that needed rest, reassurance, or support. Because I never showed that version. I didn't even allow myself to see it. One day, something small happened. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just small. Someone I cared deeply about forgot something important to me. Something I had reminded them about. Something I had rearranged my entire day for. When they casually brushed it off, something inside me cracked. Not because of that moment alone, but because it was the 1000th moment like it. I went home that day and sat in silence. No music. No phone. No distractions. Just me and my thoughts. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I had been avoiding for years: why am I always the one who stays, even when it hurts? The answer scared me. Because the truth was, I was afraid. Afraid that if I stopped giving, people would leave. Afraid that if I set boundaries, I'd be called selfish. Afraid that if I chose myself, I'd end up alone. So I accepted less than I deserved and called it love. That night, I realized something painful but powerful. I didn't lack love from others. I lacked love for myself. Think about it. When you truly love someone, you don't let them be treated badly. You don't ignore their pain. You don't push their needs aside. Yet I was doing all of that to myself every single day. I was the one hurting me the most. Loving yourself doesn't start with confidence. It doesn't start with motivation. It starts with honesty. And that honesty can be uncomfortable. It forces you to admit that some of the pain you carry wasn't caused by others alone, but by the way you kept choosing them over yourself. After that day, nothing magically changed overnight. I didn't wake up suddenly confident and fearless. Real growth is quiet. It's awkward. It's slow. The first thing I tried to do was listen to myself. Really listen. When I felt tired, I stopped pushing. When something felt wrong, I didn't immediately explain it away. When I didn't want to do something, I practiced saying no, even when my voice shook. And let me be honest with you. People noticed. Some didn't like it. Some became distant. Some called me changed. But something else happened too. For the first time in my life, I felt lighter. I realized that people who only loved you when you were overgiving never really loved you. They loved the benefits. And losing them is not a loss. It's a release. Self-love is not loud. It's not posting quotes or pretending you're unbreakable. Self-love is choosing sleep over late-night overthinking. It's leaving places where you feel small. It's not explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. I started spending time alone. Not because I was lonely, but because I needed to reconnect with myself. I walked without headphones. I sat with my thoughts. I wrote things I had never said out loud. I learned who I was without trying to impress anyone. And slowly, something beautiful happened. The more I respected myself, the more I stopped chasing validation. The more I stopped chasing, the more peace I felt. Here's a hard truth no one talks about. When you don't love yourself, you attract people who confirm that belief. People who take without giving. People who stay as long as it's convenient. People who see your kindness as weakness. But when you start loving yourself, even a little, your standards change. You stop begging. You stop forcing connections. You stop tolerating disrespect just to avoid being alone. Being alone is not the worst thing in the world. Being with people who make you feel alone is. I used to fear solitude. Now I understand it. Solitude taught me how to breathe again. It taught me that my worth doesn't decrease when someone walks away. It taught me that peace is better than chaos, even if chaos feels familiar. There were days I doubted myself. Days I wondered if I was being too cold. Too distant. Too selfish. But then I remembered the version of me who cried silently, who felt invisible, who gave everything and still felt empty. And I knew I was choosing better this time. Loving yourself more than anyone doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the process. You can still care deeply. You can still be kind. You can still be generous. But now, there are limits. And limits are not walls. They are doors with locks. You decide who gets access. One of the most powerful moments in my journey was realizing I don't need to be understood by everyone. I don't need to explain my boundaries. I don't need permission to protect my peace. Your healing will confuse people who benefited from your brokenness. Let them be confused. As time passed, I noticed something else. The way I talked to myself changed. I stopped being my own enemy. When I made mistakes, I didn't insult myself. I learned. When I felt weak, I didn't shame myself. I rested. Self-love is also forgiveness. Forgiving yourself for staying too long. Forgiving yourself for not knowing better. Forgiving yourself for choosing survival when you didn't yet know how to choose happiness. You did the best you could with what you knew then. And now, you know more. If you're listening to this and you feel seen, I want you to know something. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are simply learning. It's okay to outgrow people. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to want more. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to earn love. You don't need to prove your value by suffering. One day, you'll look back at the version of you who stayed strong through silent battles, and you'll feel proud. Not because you endured pain, but because you finally chose yourself. And here's the most important part of this story. When you love yourself more than anyone, you don't lose love. you find better love. Healthier love. Love that doesn't require you to shrink. Love that feels safe. But even if that love takes time to arrive, you'll be okay. Because you'll have yourself. And that changes everything. So today, if you take nothing else from this story, take this. Choose yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable. Especially when it feels uncomfortable. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself is the moment your life begins to change. Thank you for listening. If this story spoke to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself.